Welcome aboard, folks. Thank you very much for joining this great radio.
Here we go. Your voice counts. We lost all power here in the great state of Colorado. I don't know what's going on, but the wires must be hitting because the wind is blowing. But anyway, I'm on a cell phone right now, and, there's always great ways to figure out to troubleshoot and, get the show done. But I wanted to start out, by saying my condolences to all the passengers aboard 777 Malaysia. I hope they landed safely. I hope they were hijacked and they're still alive, God willing. And we hope that we find out what's going on. So my hearts and prayers out to all the people aboard that airplane. May they get home safely and sound as soon as possible. My guest today, Bob has been on before, Mr. Bob Hamel, is a United States naval veteran. He's a commander, very high-ranking commander. When you put the scrambled eggs on your hat, I guess that must be a chilling moment because of the gratitude that you've earned from the United States Navy and the people that your peers, the people that give you accolades. And Bob was a helicopter pilot aboard the USS America when our ship was attacked by the State of Israel, June 8, 1967. Bob and his courageous crewmates came to our aid to help us get the wounded off the ship. In fact, Bob's helicopter was the first there. And if people don't know what these men do, these helicopter pilots and their crew, they're very, very brave human beings. So they'll do whatever they have to do to save and protect their crewmates, their fallen mates, to go into the sea, whatever it may be. No job is too big or too small for them to handle. And I appreciate Bob Hamel and his dedication to duty. And also Bob is a retired airline captain from the Piedmont Airlines, which I used to fly a lot out of Greensboro, North Carolina. But Bob, if you just hang on just a moment, please, and we'll get right to you. As like I say, we're on we're kind of doing this on a troubleshooting deal here, but we'll get through it. Also, I want to thank Republic Broadcasting Network, and my board operator today is Manny, a very seasoned, well-adjusted human being in doing this type of work. He's a great guy, and he understands the truth, and he understands working for RBN. It's a real news, real talk, real people, because you can't handle the truth. And thank you, John Statmiller, for continuing to give me the opportunity to tell the truth about the USS Liberty. 34 Americans murdered by the State of Israel. Murdered, that's right, folks, murdered, and 174 others wounded, including myself. Two-thirds of the ship was either dead or wounded, and I know Bob was the first there and got the first off of our great ship, USS Liberty. I also want to thank Kat Faber. There's her songs, and she's a producer. Also, Ron Kukul. Ron was in charge of body recovery and identification. He is a very valuable asset to this radio show, and it isn't my radio show. It's the crew's radio show. It's everybody's radio show that loves America and cares about their soldiers, sailors, and Marines, Coast Guardmen, and on and on and on. Also, John Gadusco, a trusted friend, mentor to me. Please go to his website at tinyurl.com/USS Liberty, tinyurl.com/USS Liberty. Also, before we talk to Mr. Bob Hamel, I want to thank Ernie Gallo, going to the National Press Club and doing a yeoman's job in getting this story out about the USS Liberty. Are we going to a break? I guess not. Ernie did, like I say, a yeoman's job of getting the USS Liberty story out. There was a couple of the so-called errors, people called them, like a 29 by 35 foot hole or a 45 by 45 foot hole, or it really doesn't make any difference to me. I've always said it was 40 by 40, and I'm going to stick with that. But some people say to be correctly, you have to say exactly what the hole size was, and they say it's 29 by 35 by an expert, and no disrespect to that expert either, but he wants to make sure the truth is out there. But the men that died, we'll be right back, folks. Support your sponsors on RBN, please. God bless America. We'll see you in just a minute. Your voice counts. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for hanging on. And to close up on what I was saying about Mr. Ernie Gallo, Ernie was a CT aboard the ship. He was a spook, a spy, and he spent 29 years in retiring from the Central Intelligence Agency. So the guy is an upfront guy, a good guy, and if someone out there thinks he made a mistake by a few feet, I'm not going to apologize for that. Neither is none of the crew that support Ernie. He's our president, and when you pick on one of them, you pick on all of us. So that's just the way it works. And our guest today, Bob Hamel, is on by popular demand. The last show Bob was on was rated very, very high and very interesting. The first pilot to ever come on air about the USS Liberty, what he knew and what he heard, and we're going to get into that right now. Bob, thank you, sir, for coming on board again, and I appreciate it, as well as the crew and all the listening audience. Thank you.
Yes, well, I'm honored. Thank you.
Yes, Bob, if you would just go ahead and give people a rundown of what you did and why you came to Liberty, and then I got some very, very interesting questions from you that people have been asking me over the Internet and about our radio show.
Well, okay, I'll be brief. We were dispatched early morning hours the day after the attack. We had no briefing except to follow direction from an overhead vectoring aircraft, and which we did. We came upon the smoking wreck of Liberty. By my calculations, 12.6 miles off the coast of Sinai, and ship was listing and slightly smoking, and we made our way, I think it was to the port bow. I was facing aft, got a couple wheels on the deck, and we all were astounded at what we saw, and we all saw one of your crewmen stick his head out. I'd certainly like to hear his story, but he stuck his head from around a hatchway and peeked out, and we waved him toward us, and he was reluctant to come over to us. And when he finally did, he asked my co-pilot if we were there to help him, and we were all very incredulous at this. He was very relieved that we were there to help and not to do more damage. So, long story short, we took 6 or 7 wounded off, flew them back to America. En route to America, I wanted to know what was going on, since I did not get a briefing, which is not unusual for helicopter crews aboard aircraft carriers, as much of the audience will agree. So I had my crewman put his helmet on, the most lucid of the wounded, and I asked him what happened. And then he told me what happened, and I'll keep quiet right now, and I'll recount what he told me if you want me to do that again. So over to you.
Oh, absolutely. Please do, Bob.
Okay, pardon me. So he was obviously wounded and had been triaged down below, and we were getting best speed back to America, and he had about 10 minutes to speak to me that I recall, and he said they had a holiday routine on the ship, and as we all know, some men will bring up lawn chairs and whatnot, and the crew of Liberty were sunning themselves on the deck, holiday routine, and they were watching what I was told by this wounded crewman. They considered it an air show by the Israeli Air Force. And they were waving, and, hey, things are great. I mean, who didn't know Liberty was an intelligence ship? And they felt no sense of danger whatsoever. And all of a sudden, the deck started to explode, and they were strafed by several jets. And I'm not repeating things that I have subsequently read or been told. I'm just trying to isolate what he told me. So the deck exploded, and men were wounded, and he did mention torpedoes, excuse me, in the plural, one of which hit the ship. And the patrol boats were out there. He mentioned them. I think that was the launch pad for the torpedoes. And then they went about doing the best they could to rescue the wounded. And basically, that's what he told me. Now, subsequently, back on the ship, we had all the wounded men out for a photo op, because, as you know, America was loaded with newsmen and photographers. And my crewman actually took pictures of some of the wounded. And so some of my stories, again, came from those wounded people on the deck of America. And, I could go on, but if people read Innes's book and listen to Gallo and whatnot, they'll get the full story much more than I can tell them. I only have this one little slice that I can discuss verbatim.
Well, so, you were there, Bob. You were the first American craft to come to our aid, and believe me, it was a very welcome and wonderful sight.
That astonishes me, Phil. That really, to this day, I'm astonished at that, because I know we had launched attack and fire airplanes the previous day, obviously in response to the attack on Liberty, and they all came back, and they were very agitated. I mean, they obviously had a full briefing as what happened. I did not get that briefing. And I would really love to see the USS Liberty Survivors Association get one or two of those pilots to tell their story, because I know they were very upset.
Absolutely, and I heard the same sentiments from the pilots of Saratoga that were recalled and to leave us out there at the hands of Israel to destroy our ship and kill every man aboard. And I've also, I was quite close to Admiral Thomas Moore, former chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, who did the Moore report along with other generals and then a former JAG officer into the whys and the whatnots, and the outcome of the investigation was so lopsided and so untrue that it was heartbreaking to Admiral Moore and the rest of the people that put their heart and souls into this report. Men of great honors, yourself, that served their Navy, served their country, and would have given their lives for their fellow man. And you landing, you taking the chance of what you did, putting that helicopter on that ship with the list it had, is quite a feat in itself. You must be one hell of a pilot. Well, it proves that you are. I also want to thank your crewmates aboard your helicopter that were ready to go into what they knew not what could be or what would be, but were willing to give up their lives for their crew of Liberty, and that is heartfelt from all of us that have heard your statements, and it's something that it brings a great deal of respect and honor to you, your crew, and the crew of the USS America. Now, we've had many discussions with people, and including myself, with Admiral Thomas Moore, that says that aircraft from America were sent to the Liberty's aid, not conventionally armed. They were armed with nuclear weapons. Now, some of America. We'll be right back, folks. Hang on. We'll get right back to it. Here we are on my cell phone. I hope you can hear me okay, and that we're going to get through this one way or the other. But Bob, I talked to a lot of different people in doing research for my book, what I saw that day, including Admiral Thomas Moore and Admiral Starring and many others. And Admiral Moore told me that aircraft was launched from America with nuclear weapons headed to Cairo to incinerate them. Some people say that, no, that never happened. That was absolutely, it didn't take place. Perhaps it took place early in the morning when other crewmates weren't there and didn't see it. Or whatever, there's a lot of stories, but I happen to go with Admiral Moore's version of it, also Admiral Starring, and other high-ranking officials in the United States government. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have no personal upfront info about nuclear weapons being loaded. The A4 and F4 pilots certainly would know that, and that's who should be asked. I would also say if Admiral Moore said they were, then they were. They are all honorable man. He's an admiral, especially him. And if he said it, I'd believe it, but I have no personal knowledge of that.
As I don't either, other than the fact that he told me nuclear jets were coming to get involved in the war. If our ship goes down, which it was supposed to go down immediately, and as you know, the way we were shot up, we should have sunk within minutes.
If I may, Phil, I will give you a personal observation right here, in that the day of the attack, we had been, my crew and I had been tasked with taking official Navy photographers out and taking pictures of this Russian, I think it was a Komar patrol boat that had been harassing us in the Mediterranean. And while we were doing this aggressively, the Russians suddenly turned 90 degrees to the course of America and rooster-tailed that boat out of sight, and we simultaneously got recalled to the ship. I later determined that all this took place at the time of the attack on Liberty, and my crewmates and I speculated, and I illustrate that we speculated that the subsequent launch of A4s and F4s was somehow in response to a Russian attack. And we expected World War III because, as you know, most of us had just come back from Vietnam, and we thought, well, perhaps the Russian-Chinese influence was a little too much, and we were somehow getting into it with the Soviets. That's what we expected. We were totally shocked and astonished to find out that Israel had attacked Liberty. And if I may, one other personal observation, nukes going to Cairo, number one, is totally over the top because it's totally unnecessary, because why would we do that? There was no military threat there at all to the United States. But nukes going to Russia in 1967, I could see that happening. So that was our speculation, that the dust-up was with Russia, not with Egypt.
I understand, and the explanation I was given was that our ship sinks. They blame it on the Arabs, and they take it out on the Arabs. So that was the reasoning.
That could be. You were on the intelligence ship, not me, and you folks from Liberty certainly had the up-to-date information, and subsequent to these events, of course, we all have heard certain stories about what the intelligence people on Liberty were picking up, and that's who I talked to about that.
Oh, absolutely, and I also got the information that land-based Air Force aircraft were either in air or on the ready to get into this, whatever it was going to be. But you know, that doesn't change the fact if there was a nuclear armed aircraft or not coming to incinerate anybody, preferably that would be the choice of Cairo, which I was told personally by a flag admiral.
Okay, then it must be true. I'd believe it. I'd believe it if a flag admiral told me.
Well, that's exactly what he told me, and also the fact that the United States of America sent no help to the aid of USS Liberty when they knew within 12 to 15 minutes we were under attack by unmarked jet aircraft. And the cover-up for the last almost 47 years, if this is so easy to explain, Bob, why haven't they gotten the crew in front of Congress and related intelligence people to investigate this? Now, if the nuclear thing is totally out of bounds, it really, it really has no bearing on the fact that Israel did get by with cold-blooded premeditated murder on Americans that were left out there alone by their own government then and now. So it becomes a catch-22. I don't know all the facts. I wish I did. I've come as close as I could to get people on board. We also have credible information. The USS Amberjack, which was a submarine that was commissioned in 1946, was there. The ship's logs proves it was there, but none of the crew will speak. So it is. Perhaps we got one that will. We got one that is going to speak, and it'll be on this radio show. But
well, I hope so. I had one of those crewmen come up to me. I wear my Liberty baseball cap whenever I can, and one of them came up to me out in San Diego several years ago, introduced himself, and very cryptically mentioned that he was on the submarine that was in that operating area of Liberty. And I asked him some questions, and he terminated the conversation, and that was that. I was astonished.
Well, yeah, that sure sounds like one of the Amberjack sailors or the Samuel Jackson, but the fact still remains. How do we right this wrong on Americans, Bob? How do we? Wouldn't it be just a great honor for all Americans that have served their country to get the real truth out about what Israel did to America and how it's been covered up? And as I said before, not just by the LBJ administration, but every administration says that, including the Obama administration. What you get back was it was a mistaken identity, and they paid reparations, they were sorry, and so on and so forth. And then the chief investigating officer, Ward Boston, has put out a declaration before his death that the Board of Inquiry was all lies, every bit of it, and Admiral Isaac Kidd and Admiral John McCain, father of John McCain, the senator, knew it. But they pushed it through an investigation of this length in 7 days. We'll be right back, Bob. Hang on. For listening to Your Voice Counts. As I said, the show is dedicated to the crew of the USS Liberty and all Americans, especially all the guys that were in the Med that helped us, and especially our honored guest today, Bob Hamel, expert in flying aircraft, a person with great integrity. And you know, Bob, I'm going to bring on a caller, but first I want to ask you, is it, to your knowledge, do you know for sure that any aircraft left America to come to help Liberty?
Yes, we launched several, to do what, I don't know. Again, I was flying a plane guard, and we had like 6 or 7 landings and takeoffs that day, but they brought up A4s and F4s, which were armed, and launched them. And we, again, were not briefed as to why. It might sound ridiculous, but that's the way it was. And we speculated that this might be something with Russia. So, yes, we did launch armed planes from America the day of the attack. And they were launched right after that Soviet Komar took off with the rooster tail. So we were expecting something very, very serious. And only the next morning did I personally find out it was Liberty. When I got there.
Bob, outstanding, and that's exactly what you've told me before. Also, we know from testimony from Captain Tully, he launched 2 volleys of aircraft that were also recalled by Washington, specifically McNamara, and that snake LBJ. Now, we have a caller on the air. He was a shipmate of yours. You probably never met him, but he was aboard the USS America, and this person we're going to bring up is a very knowledgeable, and he's an honored guy, and he tries to do everything he can for the USS Liberty. So please go ahead, George, if you'd like, and say your piece.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Phil. First, Commander, I would I would like to tell you what, or tell the listeners what the name of your squadron was. It was Fleet Angels. It was Fleet Angels, and you were
support squadron too.
Yes, sir. And you were our guardian angels. When somebody went over the side or a plane went down, you guys flew until you ran out of fuel. So I thank you, and you saved one of our pilots. So okay. Now let's go to when the newsmen started showing up on the America.
Yes.
Okay. Every squadron that was able to carry nuclear weapons had one duty bomber designated, and that plane had the electronics changed, and they had a blast shield or glare shield that was like a camouflage to protect their eyes after the nuclear blast. Okay, there was 5 squadrons that did it. Two F4s, 1 RA5, and three A4s. My squadron was VA-66 with the blue lightning bolts called the Waldos.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Okay. Now, once the newsmen came on board, the Marine Guards on those planes, and they were spotted and tied down in the aft hangar bay,
right,
from the port side elevator to the jet shop. Correct?
Yes. I do believe that. Yes.
Okay. Now, at no time when those newsmen were on board were those planes ever moved from that spot.
Yeah, I have no reason to disagree with that.
Okay, now when we got for that matter, one of the things that they did to keep the newsmen away from those planes was the mid-bay fire doors in the hangar bay were almost completely closed, so that the photographers couldn't look at them.
Okay.
Okay, when we got the general quarters, I had just walked through the gap between the 2 doors, and I only heard part of the general quarters, but this is what I heard. Liberty, U.S. Navy ship attacked by unknown aircraft and naval units. This is no drill, general quarters. Set operation, condition, Zulu, or Zebra. And as I heard that, the Marine that was guarding the aircraft, since I was wearing my green flight deck jersey, asked me to ride brakes. So I got into I believe it was aircraft 312. It was the second one in the stack in the corner. And I didn't walk. I ran up the ladder. And as I did, I asked her, "You think they're going to miss us by 5 miles?" Because we believe the Russians were doing it. Yeah. And you remember that 5 miles? That's the nuclear.
Yeah. I was out taking pictures at the time of that Comar boat. I never heard the GQ announcement. When we landed and refueled, we saw all the activity, and of course we assumed that's what had happened. But we just recalled to America. Nobody told us it was Liberty or GQ or anything like that.
anyway, I was in that cockpit for over 2 hours, and not one of those 5 aircraft moved.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I don't think any nuclear armed planes were launched. I find it incredulous that anybody would think we would do that to Cairo. I mean, yeah, go to Moscow at the time, of course. Actually, we wouldn't be surprised.
Actually, I understand. Well, actually, sir, I understand why they might have thought so. If you recall, a few days before the thing heated up, Admiral Martin's only had four ships to worry about. And he kept track of the Saratoga and her carrier air group, but he didn't have to. He didn't have to keep track of all of them altogether. And then all of a sudden, bam! And according to Captain Tully, there was no communication between America or the Saratoga, so everything was filtered through him. I think he had such an information overload that he put all the conversations and everything together when he told Mo Schaefer that 4 planes were launched from America. There couldn't have been 4 A4s because there was only 3 that were armed. But I do believe it was the fog of war.
Okay.
Let me break in here. We got all this information coming through, and you guys were there, and we were there. Is the real story ever going to come out? But I certainly believe what Admiral Thomas Moore told me, and I certainly believe you guys. I believe you wholeheartedly. God bless you for giving your sacrifice to America. We'll get you all back on air. And especially thank you, Bob. I respect your honor and dignity, and what you've done for America is more than most. As long as with you too, George. God bless America. See you later.
We lost all power here in the great state of Colorado. I don't know what's going on, but the wires must be hitting because the wind is blowing. But anyway, I'm on a cell phone right now, and there's always great ways to figure out to troubleshoot and get the show done. But I wanted to start out by saying my condolences to all the passengers aboard 777 Malaysia. I hope they landed safely. I hope they were hijacked and they're still alive, God willing. And we hope that we find out what's going on. So my hearts and prayers out to all the people aboard that airplane. May they get home safely and sound as soon as possible. My guest today, Bob has been on before, Mr. Bob Hamel, is a United States naval veteran. He's a commander, very high-ranking commander when you put too big or too small for them to handle. And I appreciate Bob Hamel and his dedication to duty. And also, Bob is a retired airline captain from the Piedmont Airlines, which I used to fly a lot out of Greensboro, North Carolina. But Bob, if you just hang on just a moment, please, and we'll get right to you. As like I say, we're kind of doing this on a troubleshooting deal here, but we'll get through it. Also, I want to thank Republic Broadcasting Network, and my board operator today is Manny, a very seasoned, well-adjusted human being in doing this type of work. He's a great guy, and he understands the truth, and he understands working for RBN. It's a, real neutral talk, real people, because you can't handle it through the scrambled eggs on your hat. I guess that must be a chilling moment because of the gratitude that you've earned from the United States Navy and the people that your peers, the people that give you accolades. And Bob was a helicopter pilot aboard the USS America when our ship was attacked by the State of Israel, June 8, 1967. Bob and his courageous crewmates came to our aid to help us get the wounded off the ship. In fact, Bob's helicopter was the first there. And if people don't know what these men do, these helicopter pilots and their crew, they're very, very brave human beings. They'll do whatever they have to do to save and protect their crewmates, their fallen mates, to go into the sea, whatever it may be. No job is. And thank you, John Statmiller, for continuing to give me the opportunity to tell the truth about the USS Liberty. 34 Americans murdered by the State of Israel. Murdered, that's right, folks, murdered, and 174 others wounded, including myself. Two-thirds of the ship was either dead or wounded, and I know Bob was the first there and got the first off of our great ship, USS Liberty. I also want to thank Kat Faber. There's her songs, and she's a producer. Also, Ron Kukul. Ron was in charge of body recovery and identification. He is a very valuable asset to this radio show, and it isn't my radio show. It's the crew's radio show. It's everybody's radio show that loves America and cares about
Welcome aboard, folks. Thank you very much for joining this great radio.
Here we go. Your voice counts.